158. Let's get to Ghostbusters 2, which came out in 1989. Once again, directed by Ivan Reitman. Once again, written by Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis. Stars Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Sigourney Weaver, Harold Ramis, Rick Moranis, Ernie Hudson, Annie Potts. Basically everybody from the first one. And the synopsis is the discovery of a massive river of ectoplasm and a resurgence of spectral activity allows the staff of Ghostbusters to revive the business. So, and actually, quickly before I get into it, I feel like the first one, I was almost skeptical to try and talk about the first one because, for one thing, I love it so much, and there's not really anything wrong with it, in my opinion, that it's almost hard to talk about. But anyways, let's get to Ghostbusters 2. So I only saw this one, I think probably maybe in my mid 20s after I'd seen the first one many, many times. I'd heard fairly, it's a huge step down and, don't bother with it. But some people said, no, I actually really like it. It's not amazing, but I still think it's a solid sequel. And so I wasn't really sure exactly what to think. And I've probably seen it 3-ish times over the years. And I did watch pretty much all 5 of these movies in a night, so I got a pretty good side-by-side comparison for quality and what I like about each one and what doesn't work, what does. And long story short, I think that this is, spoiler, my least favorite of the 5 so far. Not by a huge margin, but to me it is by far the weakest. And we'll talk about specifics in a second, but I think that the biggest issue, and it seems to be a fairly popular opinion, so I don't think I'm in the minority for saying this, but it does in some ways feel like a B-side of an album or something, or a cover song. Like, it just feels sort of dry, a little uninspired. It's a little too messy at times in terms of the plot. Like, the characters get separated a lot, then they come back together, then they separate again. There's all these locations, there's all the politics of it going on within the plot. And I feel like at about the halfway, I still like it. I'll get that out there. I still would give it a pass. I'll take the worst Ghostbusters movie over nothing. But at about the halfway point, 2/3 point, I'm just kind of ready for it to be over. It just really drags at points. It's way too slow for what the story is. It feels way slower than the first one, which I think is almost perfectly paced. I don't really care that much about this kind of whiny villain who's the mentor or employer of Sigourney Weaver. I like the whole idea of the painting kind of coming alive and that ghost reappearing in real form, but everything surrounding that really does not hook me. There are a few moments here and there, like even like the opening with the runaway baby carriage. I think that's pretty clever. And the look of the sewer, the pink slime is iconic. I love that look. And how they update some of the uniforms of the Ghostbusters. Like, it's little things that work for sure. And the courtroom scene where they're about to be convicted and sent to jail, and then suddenly the pink slime goes nuts and the ghosts get out and they get to bring back Ghostbusters. So there are moments where I'm like, I love that scene. I forgot about this one. I'm back in for a little while. But then, there's not enough humor. There's really not that much action going on. The ghosts are few and far between. Like, the first act, I'm always in. I'm thinking, maybe I was wrong about this one. Like, what was I thinking the first time I watched this? And then it starts to get more into that second act, and I'm like, oh boy. Which is too bad because, it has all the right elements there. I just think that they maybe should have taken a little bit more time with this one. I'm still glad that this one came out so we could have others later on with the reboots and sequels. I'm glad that still exists. This one walked so the others could run and exist, rather. So I'm happy and thankful for that. And there are some other good scenes, like the world of the psychic scene, the television conversation. I think that's really funny. The Statue of Liberty sequence at the end, I really like that look and how that is all shot and choreographed. Oh, and also actually talking about one great comedy moment is when the Ghostbusters are trying to get down into the sewers and figure out what's going on, and they're dressed up as construction road workers, and the police come and they start acting like classic New York obnoxious guys, and there's that ridiculous accent, and then the police leave and then they come back. I think all that shows you the humor that they have, and that comes mostly, once again, as in the first, through performance. Like the lines aren't that funny that are written, but they make it funny, and that's saying something. The pink slime coming out of Sigourney Weaver's bathroom when she's about to give her baby a bath, that's really visually pretty cool. And then lastly, probably the other scene that sticks out to me is when Slimer gets loose and causes chaos. So like at best, this movie is one of those films that I kind of become autopilot on. I can have it on in the background. I like just spending time being with those characters. There's just a charm there. There's a comfort once again there. So if you haven't seen it, if you like Ghostbusters, but you have never gotten around to seeing this one, you could do worse when it comes to sci-fi action comedies. And I know that I'm sure I'm in the minority here, at least when it comes to Letterboxd. A lot of people praise this one higher than the more recent ones, both the reboot and then the two narrative sequels, but we'll get to that soon. It is, though, sadly for me, this one is the low point of the 5 so far. And I think it'll always probably stay that way. So that one is a light 3 out of 5.